about education here on Massive 103.5 FM. And let's not forget, this program is sponsored by our wonderful employer,
University of Aruba. Yes, and as you can see today, we have a complete different setup. We're trying something new, trying to remain lifelong learners. So
I have to say, in every aspect, Cherise, you've learned something new in a week. And she gave me a lot of stress, a lot of stress, because in wanting to be perfect in everything, we're representing the university, we're representing ourselves as lifelong learners, and once you learn something new, you have to make sure you master it before you move on to something else. So, yeah, Cherise, it has been another interesting week, and therefore it's going to be another interesting straight-up conversation with our guest here today, Charlene in the house. Welcome, buon tardi, Charlene.
Buon tardi, dank je per invitation.
See, Charlene has already indicated, I will go, papiamento. That's okay, because that's what Aruba is. We're multilingual, and we are here for everyone. Same as the university, we believe in inclusion, and we should be able to have a program for everyone, and that they feel comfortable in their skin to communicate the way they want. So before we continue as well, Cherise, our program is, it's only hosted, we only have female guests this week.
Yes. That is
International Women's Day.
Yes. And it's something that we celebrate with one another, empowering one another, and reaching forward for who we are and what we would like to achieve. So welcome. So, Deborah, would you like to introduce our guest?
Yes, as we're busy sorting out through everything. Now, I have to say that I know Charlene now for, I think, how long am I part of SVG? For the past
3 or 4 years.
I'm going my 4th year as voorzitter, yes. Voorzitter, and a year before, so almost 4 or 5. And Charlene, I'm actually here to find her business, trying to find out her business, because she's always quiet. I know she does a very important function within SVK. And that's why I have her here, because we wanted to talk about looking at education from a different perspective. So for those of you wondering what SVK is, she will also explain. But let's start with Charlene. Who are you? What would your friends say about you?
Well, I'm Charlene Geerman. I was born and raised in Aruba. Kiko mi amiga ng lobisa dimi. Mi te quero ko ng lo papia di mi creatividad. E tambe mi te quero ko gente ko trabajo duro. Kasi workaholic.
Cassie workaholic. I think very dedicated. I think Charlene looks at me as someone, when I read her bio, she's very dedicated, lifelong learner, always trying to move forward. So I think Charlene, dedicated and hard worker.
Dedicated and hard worker. So that will come to the hard worker, because you are now working at SVHIA. But before we go to that, this program is about education, your trajectory. Can you tell us what does your education trajectory look like? So where did you start? Ano kumisa by school?
Mia kumisa na Agnes kleuterschool. Agora kita na North, antes etauta dilante di Rosa College. Banda di University of Aruba.
Oh, yeah. Om the hook. Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Si, minha começar inanang kumi carreira ding school eigenlijk. Mi tauta gusta escola masha hopi mes e persona ko inspira mi masha hopi mes ta mi tanta e tauta juffrouw di school inang tame tauta kleuterleidster en tauta yamanang e tempo anto sempre mi admira su dedicação para su school e tauta by tour vakansie by jude lava tour materiali assim.
Wow.
Ja, 4 anos. Dus sim.
But Deborah, we forgot something, Good afternoon, our Facebook listeners as well. Yeah. We have full view of Deborah, because last time they were like, we're not seeing Deborah, or we're not seeing all our guests. So thank you, Facebook listeners, for all your feedback, and a special shout out for our webmaster, Ramses Adams from ARC Digital, who's been helping us behind the scenes. So yes.
Thank you very much. Shout out indeed. Sorry, Facebook listeners.
Yes.
We're so caught up in the program and trying on everything.
Yes. Yes, to welcome you there. But Deborah, Charlene, before we would, I think it's maybe important to start off also with the code so everybody can get tuned in to where we were going to, because today we really want to dedicate this month and international to our special kids. So would you read the code, and then so everybody kind of let that marinate a little bit as we're preparing to continue with the interview with Charlene.
So for those of you who don't know Bruce Lee, then you must be really, from the 2000s. Because I think anyone before knows Bruce Lee. And Bruce Lee once said, instead of buying your children all the things you never had, you should teach them all the things you were never taught. Material wears out, but knowledge stays. So I'll repeat again. Bruce Lee, and he had some good shows, believe me. When there was nothing else but video, there was Bruce Lee. And he said, instead of buying your children all the things you never had, you should teach them all the things you were never taught. Material wears out, but knowledge stays.
Siguro po
Doesn't it?
And I guess you can say with you, Charlene, it's what you were taught that stayed, and now you're able to do. So let's go back to
let's go right back to
education
Charlene.
trajectory.
Yes.
So it started already from Kleuter.
Yeah, Agnes Kleuterschool with my aunt as a teacher there. Después zij me bij Rosario College. Goed dat een tikkie schuin tegenover die Agnes Kleuterschool. En voor die enang La Salle College, Colegio Arubano en después IPA. E assim eu comi minha bai IPA com a intenção de vir docente de scheikunde e wiskunde, portanto me dois vakjes favorito. E me pensa,
Full switch.
me pensa, esse é meu ideal job. Me acorda como muito de 4 anos, me dá hunga na minha wela, so cá sempre je vrouw de school. Sempre imitando minha tanta e a minha je vrouw. Dus como ik quero vir je vrouw de school, me dá essa sempre. E ora minha bij voortgezet onderwijs, como sim matéria na wiskunde e scheikunde, de outra maneira de best, dus na dois combinar com o donamento de les, de outra maneira, yes, that's it.
All right.
Minha bai IPA.
Sigue nomás. Sí.
Okay. Minha bai IPA e de mi prome aia como IPAN. Mi stage na school kijketio. Dus ons oriëntatiestage na speciaal onderwijs. En mijn service voor die momenten me fall in love com speciaal onderwijs.
Y eso no sabes, un pequeño tiene teléfono que está escuchando, esa Gloria, do not wear school kijketio.
School kijketio ta na Kurakabay.
Just for different, but it always had the name school kijketio.
Yes. So there's a beach in the back, Kurakabay Beach, where they're going to be doing some gym. So it's all the way in the back. There's the only school on that side, actually. Yeah.
School kijketio, was je stage? Como school kijketio?
Toevallig, sim, sobre que dembo para mim na IPA bota stage ding toe onderwijstype na. Dus kleuterschool, basisschool, voortgezet onderwijs en speciaal onderwijs. E voor die momenten kom ik stage in aan, voor hij een chance mira kiko ta speciaal onderwijs. Mijn service ku ela capture my heart e me apurba pa mais tanto quanto possível durante mi aina na IPA pa stage de speciaal onderwijs.
Kom ik mee bij een speciaal onderwijs. Dus die IPA end up in speciaal onderwijs. Ik heb otros con
solamente speciaal onderwijs.
Speciaal, mensen die school passa para futuro.
Me traga na school passa para futuro também. Me traga na Emma School e na Kaiketio que tal também o prome school special e tal também último school special prome que vai school do Numang.
Musa, Deborah, I'm getting questions, and my loyal listeners are saying they can't hear you, Deborah. So you're gonna have to speak close to the microphone. Thank you. Nós podemos Charlene se parte de special, dus sempre ding e parte de speciaal onderwijs, Deborah.
Sim, dus end up in speciaal. The program is about education, onderwijs. Pero ahora nos pensa speciaal onderwijs. We use the term special, education. What should we understand under special education?
Me lo pone palabra acerca de esta special needs education.
Bonita.
Sobre esta mucha que tiene una necesidad especial para ahora trata de enseñanza. Entonces aquí está varia for de lesmaterial que nanta haya tena con nanta sinha. Dus cada mucha tem mister of tem una necesidad único para por lograr de enseñanza.
No, very nicely said.
Yeah, and sabi ko contento ko Charlene to explica sa akin. I'm very happy that she's explaining this because usually when we talk about special children, mi tawo to piano ko Charlene o fije say ko hopi biya but hanya gevoel ja nata special pero nata hanya e ultimo party. So they're getting the end of the stick. So now you can see that the preparation for the program, the curriculum is completely different because it has a different approach. Yes, dus sai mi te quero que to hopi importante para nós oyentes não ter conta com nico em nota e material dus eta exigir que botin classe não mais chiquito.
Seguro.
Mas je vrouw não?
Mas je vrouw não, seguro ora que nós chega na zeta malka que tá zeer moeilijk lerende kinderen. Eta hopi mais necessário para botin hopi mais resources para bot trabalhar com emocional aqui. Eta vai de quantidade de pessoas em classe, tena qual material nós usa, como nós usa e material que nós tem que laga los e sigue trabalhar riba de com cada mucha. Dus eta echt e necessidade especial que mucha aqui bodilante tem mister para prosseguir enseñanza.
Wow.
Yeah.
No. I'm taking back because hopi bianos not awake asina.
Correct.
Saya me hopi feliz que nos tingo den programa awe para por explicar sei. Me conhecer bo den bo huidige rol, maneira directrice die school Dunuman, dat onderdeel die Stichting Verstandelijk Gehandicapten Aruba, SVGA. Porta para explicar algo of die no stichting para vooral bo trabalho que cooperatie com emocional e não está trabalhar na escola do Numan.
Okay. SVGA tá fundação não lucrativa que está trabalha com emocional e adulto que tem limitação intelectual. Mas para não tá hopi mais difícil paciência. SVGA nós tem parte de social, nós que está guardo financiado também do departamento social, que está o departamento não Bibito Ping, Magna Obra, Brio de Solo, Caixa Baruri e atualmente também Cas Blenches. E nós tem parte que está guardo financiado do departamento de ensinança, que está escola do Numan. Dus nós está a única escola de stichting e tem que cumprir cultura e regulamento não também de qualquer outra escola aqui na Aruba.
Yes, but so hope you, yeah.
We're really in sync today, Cherise.
Yes,
What's up
yes.
with that?
Yeah, that's all good because I again we need to highlight this because we always think okay, na tayo subsidy dus na tayo cost na pagiste ni emo nang basic na no opi de kere opi hende or we don't realize that there is a complete different curriculum because of their needs and the way they have to be taught. Yeah.
For those of you listening in, dus SVGA exists already now for 57, this is our 57th year. So I think in terms of educating those with special needs, you can say we have proven for the 57 years that we've been doing is that we know what we're doing. And I say we because I'm president of the board of the Stichting, but we do our best for the love of our clients and our students. One of the things I think many people underestimate is the time and effort that goes into, getting these kids to fulfill their needs in education. It's not as, and that's why we say it's something different about education today,
Yes.
because our next guest will be looking at education from a different way, where
perspective.
there's
Yeah.
acknowledgement of all these needs that kids have
Correct.
and how you can help them fulfill that during the day. But with School Dunumang, it's not only about sit, the 8 pa 5 na sa sisay,
Correct.
iturin de mestra si mesmo course.
Por me ko Charlene contesta essa pa isnang ko kabi tune in sa kita straight up conversation about education, and we're speaking today with Charlene Herman. She is the head from School Dunumang, see, and her approach lies largely inspired by creativity and efficiency, which you'll find reflected in her work. And you can also hear it as she is sharing her experience as well. So back to your question, Deborah.
So I would want for Charlene to explain a bit more in depth, how do the classes look? How does the curriculum for these, for the students look, and in meeting their needs in education?
Okay. Undi mi prometra bau nang kumi hasi na skol Dunumang, tabatabay comparar no skol ku skol nang na Holanda. Anto hopi hende lo bisa ya di kong Holanda,
Yeah.
Holanda nota parse Aruba, pero Holanda ting struktura ng kla fijo ponika ba pa skol na e siguro pa enseñanza special e net na 2012 ko ami kumisa traha Holanda a passa de processo completo de renovar e curriculum e doelen ng onderwijsdoelen ng pa sus enseñanza special. Dus lo que conoce hasi e nesse serviço também com SVGA tota stap dilante que so ya acaba SVGA de junto com a escola do Numang, estava a trabalhar com uma escola na Holanda, Sint-Wantea School.
Is that situada na onda?
Essa está na Rotterdam. Anto, voor die nang ahaya ng leerlijnen nang, liya nang disiya. E como tarea e virando e inovação que está tomando lugar na Holanda para a enseñanza especial, nós vai revisar a linha de ensino completamente, adaptar essa aqui na situação de Aruba. Então, com esse nós atraha nos mesmo linha de ensino, na escola do Numang turmo já começar com book de progresso, caminho tem tour e meta não conosco logra para tour vac. Especial de nos escolta, que nós não solamente está dirigindo a parte cognitiva de emoção, nós não está dirigindo somente a essa rec, lesa, escrever, pero fora de esse, nós está ajuda emocional, desenvolver social emocional e outra área. De minha opinião, nós está dia escola que mira é muito como totalidade,
holístico.
And I have to, I think you want to say something?
Yes,
Sherry?
I want to ask you, orobota geef aan ku bos nang adaptai programa pa ku Aruba. Orobota bisa bos nang sinta junto com directie onderwijs ku corso. Kiko metingo imagina paso bota geef aan kina ku enota copy paste.
No, I know to copy paste. Está com nós como escola, como docente, como team, nos assenta e revisar essa aqui e ora que nós temos turcos claro, nós manda essa aqui para inspeção van onderwijs, para também tinele e junto com nós começa a encaminhar e caminho de, ok, com nós vai parte nos currículo e hora de hora segundo a classe Dus nós sim, nós vou por visa passo adiante de hopi outra escola na Aruba.
E me sabi um pari anos atrás, ora me ser conheci com SVGA, toen kwam ik rondleiding voor wax en niet dat ik denk bestuursie of no. I remember walking into your class, and I remember there was something remarkable that happened. There was this little boy who had problems dealing with his emotions, and you took the time and you allowed me, she put me to stop, weet je. Bestuur, but opeens op je bestuur te importante. Nou, bestuur is niet zo belangrijk soms. Pero met elkaar neem ik eventjes, can you wait a minute? And you went and you attended this boy. And in this corner, there were several pictures, angry face, happy face, you know, and there were words sad and the whole description. And you went and you walked through with this person, this little young boy. the feelings that he was going through, and you allowed him space to sit and express himself what it was that he was going through. And I really looked at that moment and thought, I had never seen this before. And after you explained to me, you were applying conscious discipline, which after I realized, it's really, there's a lot. I still haven't done it as yet, but I am aware of it and you seek into it. And I wondered how many, in environments where kids get the opportunity to really express what they're going through without ignoring his feelings. So I think that is something that I admire of School Dunamang, and I know it is applied within SWGA, in dealing with clients who often are seen as already labeled as having a disability, but also being labeled as having not being able to deal with their emotions. And it comes to show us that with guidance, everyone, even us as adults, can learn how to express and deal with our emotions.
Yeah, that is well said, Deborah. Charlene? Okay.
Het eigenlijk essencial para por seguir doen les. Want não por doen les que muito que está upset. Nós mes, hope viaja não por funcionar optimal se não está upset. E great de conscious discipline igual me tá admirar mais hope mes, é método para social emocional, para o desenvolvimento social emocional de adulto e aluno. E nota para aluno, não por aplicar conscious discipline com aluno.
Correct.
A mim como adulto, me está conscious.
Consciente, yes.
Para mim por disciplinar é mucha conscientemente.
Maybe if you can take the opportunity just to explain, if possible, a bit of this conscious discipline, because as for someone home listening in and is saying, my child is getting, irritated, and to mita 1, 2, 3, me fuse a bula, so me mesti me applique van, my mind is thinking that, but I'm like, okay, step back. Look at this situation from a different perspective. Waki di mucha tu sus perspectiva. Portanto, pode explicar tiki para entrar qualquer sai por seguir busca informação também depois.
Disciplina consciente está baseada em estudo de cérebro. Está cientificamente provado que nossa maneira de atuar está baseada em como nosso cérebro está funcionando e onde nós está de nosso estado de nosso cérebro. Então, botim parte de sobrevivência, é parte emocional e botim é parte executivo. Então, solamente ora habita dentro nos tour, ora nós está de nosso estado executivo, nós por pensar em a solução. Então, conscious discipline está sendo nós com para andar durante o conflito com nós mesmos, então com a nós como adulto por via nós muito nosso estado executivo para não por si uma habilidade nova. Maybe isso é para mim.
Não, me tá aí que eu expliquei curto e como isso kort maar krachtig. En toen me vai invitado também que ora nos cabe que interview aqui por favor tem comment box, tem comment dari ba Facebook of YouTube onde kuta escreve of one of those booki para nos quer para nos oyentes of to nos Facebook viewers também sim e tem oportunidade para seguir sim. As you say, lifelong learning is about enabling growth. So we hope that this conversation not only inspires you and empowers you, but also that you become a lifelong learner and kind of search a little bit more, learn to know more, because we all are in different stages. Laga nos sa unis no tur dia mesmo dia. Ante eu nos consciente de sei nos por anda com outro e conosco muito não hopi mais podemos me querer que assim bonita samenvatting então para mim vai seguir com o qual para bisami me digo Charlene se me serviçabo que tá bom message que eu quero echt trazer de lá que eu nos papiando de muito na especial porque nós sabemos a hopi bia é word mira diferente para bisami we are different we are equal. Dus bakabi explique parte de conscious discipline de com nos mesmos que tá aware ou que eu quero men que sei em caráter de full estudo de educação para muito não especial.
Maneira é que eu bisa nós está diferente nos cada tem nos timing den vida, dus que hora nós trabalhamos na certo meta, né?
Mhm.
Com nós tacinha, qual é o material que nós meter para nós porcinha, mas mijo, pero na final de dia nós turta igual, nós turta ser humano que tem o mesmo direito que qualquer outro ser humano.
Wow. Because time is flying, man.
Yeah.
Vou seguir com toda a conversação que nós temos. There's so much to ask, to talk about. So, nós não pensando with special needs. And special needs comes in so many different forms. So, disability, nós tem cognitive, tem physique. I hope many times I hear people saying, here in Aruba, this group is not visible.
Yeah.
Correct. Er is een schaamte ook.
Yeah.
When you have kids with disability or family members with disability. I think I would like to take away that, I don't know if you call it a myth, pero kiko po bisa pa gente que está escuchando and to have, criar beeld over dit groep mensen que nós não sabemos. So nós está papiando, nós está judge a group of people, individuals that we know nothing about, but which somehow society has labeled as less than, lower than IQ, to say. Parang af kiko lo que doen a gente takeaway about group with special needs, be it educational needs, be it physical needs. Kiko po geef mij als laatste.
A mim lo quero compartilhar com a comunidade de Aruba, que é muito com necessidade especial para sim, tem o mesmo direito que toda gente e merece uma oportunidade em a comunidade de maneira qualquer outra pessoa. Pero para nós por hasi essa aqui é toma a mim, pero também cada de bolso para donar e sostém e guia que não me ser para lograr isso aqui. E nota algo que te passa comum para não. Me tabisa sempre, se eu tawak me lava com quebra, amanhã é por lava com quebra. Se me aluno na escola wak me lava com quebra, me mestre explique o processo que tem que tomar para é por lava e com quebra amanhã, pero é trabalhar bem.
And that is true. Might take some time.
Yes.
But it will come at the end. Now, thank you very much, Aline. I just want to send a shout out to bestuur van SWGA. Pues mama dan een tour om listen in. Pues al bestuur SWGA, pero también empleado na di SWGA. Que sempre me avisa, me admirar e hoop respeito por trazer um doelgroep assim, vooral em tempo em que é difícil, corona, assim, ainda mais difícil para nos maneira SVGA, nós, pero okay, SVGA seu trabalho. And for those wanting to know more about SVGA, go to their Facebook page where you can find out so much more. SVGA is always looking for volunteers, so do send a message that you're willing to volunteer and be part of these kids and persons with special needs. Charlene, thank you very, very much for being part of this straight up conversation, here with the University of Aruba. And for everyone listening in, go to our Facebook page if you want to look back at this, conversation, something struck you, you want to just, reflect on it, please go back to our Facebook.
Or if you like, you can share any comments or questions that you have, because even though the speaker will leave, we will have another speaker. They will always answer all the questions, because it is our mission to make sure that you are well informed, so you also can become and remain a lifelong learner and learn to accept each others as equal. Dus Charlene, mas dank di nome di universidade. Nós está aprecia mais o opiniões que eu quero compartilhar. Então, me tá echt dengo como persona. It's from the heart. This is the love is there.
So what I'm changing with Charlene, you can tell everyone about where they can find out information about the University of Aruba. I know it's passing at the bottom, Sharice, but still for those listening in, not seeing, checking out the high-tech.
I would also like to explain everyone, remember on the 30th of March, we have a virtual open house coming up, meaning parents, student, prospective student, if you are interested to learn more about the University of Aruba, please, keep keep in mind these days, or mark your calendar, save the date on March 30th. We're going to be sharing information about the different programs that we have. So those of you who just tuned in, this is Terrible Conversation about education right here on Massive 103.5 and live on our Facebook page of the University of Aruba. Thanking everyone again for all the messages, helping us improve and remaining lifelong learners, as I said. Those of you who want to learn more about a program, please just simply send us an email at osa@ua.way. Would you like to learn about more of the courses, workshop, or lectures that are organized by Center for Lifelong Learning? Just send an email to cll@ua.way. And then I see our guest is there again.
Yes, my guest. Oh my
Hello,
guest. Oh my goodness. I think
hello.
Sharice has heard me, even though I said I was not going to make it personal. I think you've heard me. You've heard
Yes,
me
we
speak
just want you a
about
little closer
to the mic.
to the mic.
Yes.
A little closer to the mic so our audience, our Facebook audience can see you. So welcome.
So
Welcome.
So we have with us Suzanne. And also this is Suzanne van Felt.
You got it.
Because I'm always like, is it German? Is it, do I pronounce it well? Do I not pronounce it well?
I hope I wrote it right. Von Saalfeld.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Yes? Okay, we got it right.
Yes,
We
so
got
we
it
have to
right.
Make sure, because I can't make a mistake with this guest today. I know she is a critical person, but also a very, very, very special person. And
Thank you.
we just had our previous guest, Charlene, which we looked at education from a different perspective. You are here because you are a teacher at the beautiful Sun Montessori. And I think for those listening in for many years can only do one and one is two to accept to make a link. But before we go to that, Suzanne, tell the audience who you are. So what would your friends, family, husband say about you?
Well, I'm firstly so grateful to be here. It's an honor to be sitting with you, Deborah. This show is very special. I've been listening to the past episodes and I find them wonderful.
Yay.
So my name is Suzanne von Saalfeld. These guys passed the test saying my name. It's the hardest part of all of this.
I just want to make sure we want to see her beautiful face. And they said, Charisse, we can't see her. So we're going to actually sit a little bit more in this
That
Oh,
side.
a little more
Yeah.
to this side?
Yeah,
Yeah.
keep the mic right there.
That's a
Yes,
gorgeous
thank you.
face. Yeah.
Yes,
Thank you.
my
I'm all
WhatsApp
messed
is
up,
hot
though.
today. So yes, Suzanne.
So what would we say about you?
Well, I was thinking about that question and wondering what would people say about me? And it really just depends on who you ask. So if you ask my husband, we're not going to go there.
Okay.
But if you ask maybe my colleagues or other parents, I think you would think that I am a very patient person
Yes.
with a bottomless well of ability to control myself and be zen with children, but that is mostly a facade.
So it's a myth we're taking out at one time. No, teachers are not calm human beings.
They're not perfect human beings, that's for sure. And so even though I work on myself just as much as anybody else, and I have been working at Beautiful Sun Montessori School for 13 years. I'm the director and teacher there. And watching amazingly this method of Montessori grow all over Aruba, which has been an amazing journey.
Yeah, so I have, as Suzanne said, 13 years ago. So for those being able to do math, which is one of the subjects that are taught, because people have this preconceived notion about what is taught, Beautiful Sun was the first Montessori school here in Aruba, if I remember correctly.
It was
partially, but really a school then.
It was the first dedicated school. So I worked at international school prior to starting our own program for 4 years. And there is where I came into contact with Montessori for the first time. So they had hired a Montessori teacher there to run the preschool, and they were trying it out. And I happened to land in there for one day and decided this is what I need to do for the rest of my life. So I worked there for 4 years and developed Montessori at that school, but felt that the general population of Aruba really wanted a different kind of program. They wanted alternative education. People were coming to ISA and they really wanted to enroll their children, but for many reasons it was difficult. And so I thought, I think if I start a school, people will come, and effectively they have come.
They have come. So before we go,
Yes. I think we're in sync because I was like, Montessori. We know that in St. Nicholas we're also going to start up a new Montessori coming up. Your Frau Connie, she'll hopefully be on one of the programs. But can you please explain a bit more of the concept of Montessori, because we know it's from Italy, but a little bit of a background and why? Could you explain that you saw that people really wanted to a different way of looking at it? Explain a bit so our listeners can understand that.
How much time do you have?
Well, let's put it this way. We don't have too much time, but we want that anybody listening would have that takeaway and have that, let's say, the initial understanding of it.
Because I would want to find some people find I don't understand it. It's
Yeah.
not good.
It's mixed up.
It's mixed
The
up.
kids
it's
are doing
bad, the
everything.
kids are- So that's where you should start, knowing that there are preconceived ideas which are not correct
Right.
about Montessori kids. And again, it's not something from now. It's something that's existed for.
Yeah.
So explain maybe there.
So even in the past, when people asked me what I did, and I would say I'm a Montessori teacher, they would say like, "Oh, you're a monastery teacher." And so, first of all, it's not that. So, Montessori is a method of education that was started more than 100 years ago. But I'm not going to get into the history of it. Let's talk about why people love it and why it's growing so much in Aruba. And frankly, I believe that it has a place all over the world. And I think that the answer to that is simply because children are living life at school. So school does not, in a Montessori classroom, there is no distinction between life that is happening right now and schooling. School is a part of life. So children come and they live at school and they are valued for who they are. They get to explore their own interests. They get to be authors of their own education. They do practical things. They participate in the maintenance of the school. They can be who they are, and all of that is called work. And so there is a very individual aspect that has to do with it, but there is also a community aspect. So the children feel they're a part of a humongous family when they come to school.
Yeah. No, I'm just like, oh, you said it so well. Yeah, you continue. Yeah.
I want to see that if I could feel with Charlene the energy, but also
Yes.
with Suzanne, the energy and love that they have for what they do. And I know that all teachers, give their best
I second that, yes.
to do that. I would just, there are questions I have, but I just want, what makes Montessori different? And I Googled it, for people. I just want to, some like respect for children as unique individuals. That's
Yes.
one of the things. Fostering independence, which is something which is very highly present. These kids are very independent. Engaging in a variety of learning styles. Maybe we can speak about the learning styles in a bit, because Charlene also explained that for kids with special needs in education, there are different learning styles that need to be used. Teachers serve as a guide, so mistakes are part of the learning process, which many of us never are taught. Children learn best in social environments. Learning is unique, inspiring environment.
Yes, especially the learning environment,
Yes.
the well-prepared learning environment. I think there's a bit of a misconception in that as well.
Specialized materials that stimulate learning. It's building a strong sense of community, you said. Inspiring love for the natural world is one of them. Creating global citizens is definitely one. So these were 12 that I found. And I know we can go into each and every one of them, but maybe have your pick besides the style. Which would be your pick for one of them that you would really want to focus on?
That's a beautiful list. And it's a pretty complete list.
Not
so
limited to, yeah.
you answered the question super well. So what makes it different? Well, if different, I really believe that there is value and merit to every system of education, and the love of teachers for children. And I mean, you can find good teachers and good programs anywhere, first of all. So, but what I personally love about Montessori is the fact that it's a very dynamic program. So I don't necessarily know exactly what I'm going to teach every week, because a big part of the program is observing the children and seeing what needs are present at the moment. So it's a very present method. So I sit in my little tiny white stool in the classroom and I observe the children. And of course, they have freedom of movement. They have freedom of choice of work. They have freedom to socialize. So I'm seeing actual life unfolding before me. And based on what I see, I can tell, oh, we need to give some lessons on how to tell somebody politely that you would like to work with the material. Or I see a child that is fascinated by number concepts, and then I know that child is ready for the next lesson in math. Or I see somebody who's just discovered how to read all by themselves, and then I think, wow, that child is ready to do reading lessons. So the dynamic aspect of it, and the fact that you are following the children's own interests and the development
Yeah.
of the group makes it a very timely method. It will never go out of
Right. Because you have to be very observant. But having said that, when we're talking about let me see what I wrote down, a well prepared learning environment, what about the parents? Because to me, you have to have some kind, and I know you're
Conscious
ranking at Deborah,
discipline,
like,
conscious
yeah,
discipline.
like we're not going to ask about Deborah, but because it's an and, because if it's part of their complete environment, we're also talking about the home environment and involving parents. And nowadays, parents are always, or not all parents are working. And how do you get them involved, and how do you get them to understand it? Because you may love the concept, but how do I apply that at home? How do we go about it? Could you explain a bit on that concept? Because I do see that in a very vivid and live classroom, an observant a teacher and participating. But what about parents?
So the parent education aspect of our school in particular, I hold very dear and consider as important as the education of the children, because especially for the age of 3 to 6, which is the age that we serve at our school, the home environment continues to be the primary environment of learning for children, and the parents continue to be the most important role models for the child. So you cannot just drop off your child at the school and then hope the school will do the work, and then you don't have to do very much at home. It doesn't work that way. So the education of the parents begins with their first observation in the classroom. So we invite the parents to come into the classroom and pretend to be plants in a corner of the classroom and watch the children at work. And more often than not, they're completely amazed at the fact that children are so capable and so independent and able to do so much with so little help that they realize, oh my gosh, my child can do a lot more than I thought was possible. So it begins with the observation, and it continues with the conversations that we have during parent conferences. We give parent education nights. We send photo albums every week so that parents can see not just what their child is doing, but what other children in the environment are doing. So we feel that it's also a center for lifelong learning. We are all
At a
learning.
younger
So
age,
the
yeah.
teachers are also in a constant state of learning at school.
I wrote down, for anyone seeing me writing down, is that, again, the link, I thought back on what Charlene said,
Yes.
we as parents teach our kids a lot. And if
Yeah.
we take for granted our role and just say, well, it's the teacher's job to do it, then by the time the kids come home, you're going to have a big problem. And I think you see it a lot. We put so much emphasis on our teachers. And I have
Yes.
many friends who are teachers, and I want to send a shout out to each and every one of them from every area of education, that we understand and we share,
Yes.
I don't
Yeah.
say your pain, but where you're trying your best, but you cannot do it by yourself. It all
Right.
starts at home.
Right. And it's a holistic view. So it's children, parents, the whole movements. And I like how you said parents conference. So you don't have a parent evening night where you'll come and say what your kid is doing or not doing. You're actually trying to have the parents participate in the growth of their children as they grow with them, because I think it's difficult at first. It's like, before they will go like, oh, you ask your opinion, and the child tells your opinion, you're like, not now, having a bad day, not now, and then you just can't put it on stop.
And I would like to add, as a parent.
Yes, I was like,
as a
Deborah,
parent,
tell
I
us,
try
sharing.
not to make it personal, because
No, but it
think
is important.
one of the things that I admire from Suzanne's class is, and the parent conferences and the communication is, indeed, I know it must be time consuming, but I think we as parents cherish that, is indeed every week you get a parent communication with a picture and with a description. It's not only your child, it's a progress of the week where you see kids doing so many different things that you understand the phase that these kids are in. I do understand that some people might say it's a luxury. It's one class consisting out of 25 or 28 kids, but they're all different ages. So that was one of the things I also wanted. The myth about, Montessori, it's not 3 to 4, 5 to 6, 7 to 8. There's an X amount of students, same age, of different
Correct.
ages, um, teaching each other. And I think one of the first things of when we came to the Montessori was that we walked away with a sense of this is how our work environment looks, just with mini kids. So
Right.
we all go in, have something to learn, something to give, and we're doing it at different times. Because I don't do the same thing that Cherise does, in the sense
Thank God,
of
no.
thank God, no. But with that is
Yeah.
we all function and develop,
Develop,
at different
yes.
moments within the university. Our students do the same.
Yes.
Teachers lecture in different ways. So it was very confrontational for us the first time we just explored to see that. But then we also recognize this is what the future looks like. This is what Google looks like.
Yes.
This is what
Yes.
Facebook looks like.
And it's sometimes I think we all want it, but we're like, are we willing to give? Are we willing to share? And and talking about sharing, I think the beautiful son also assisted in help in bringing up the Montessori school that is coming up in St. Nicholas. Yes, could you share maybe a bit of that? Because we hope that those of you who are interested, it's not only for those, and we're not only having it in Pustuguit, it's going to be in St. Nicholas as well. We have one in town. We had Iraida with the further education. So you see, there's a whole stream because people are concerned. But yes, when my child goes to the Montessori, what will happen? Then they won't fit in to the pattern. Or do they have to fit into the pattern? Or
That's it.
do we have to do things
Is it
differently?
for everyone? That's another question.
Suzanne, what's share your thoughts?
So that's a common phrase that comes back to me is it for everyone? So I
Mhm.
pondered that question and thought, is it for everyone? Well, if we compare it, for example, to a mainstream classroom where children often have to sit for long hours quietly and listen to only one adult speaking, that I feel is maybe even more restrictive
Mhm.
than a classroom where children get to walk and talk and choose and are active participants in their education. So is it a perfect method? Probably not, but it's the best that I have come across, and it certainly fits a wider range of learners than maybe a traditional environment because it's very hands-on. It has materials that are concrete. Children that are visual learners learn a lot by observing in the classroom. There's auditory learners in the classroom too, so there's a lot of language happening. There's social learners, children who have a great amount of social intelligence who get to be the problem
Right.
solvers in the group. You have the active kids who need movement
Yes.
breaks and are allowed to have them. So it fits a wider range of learners for sure than other systems of education.
Yeah, I think I'm glad you're sharing that with us as well because everybody is like, okay, but I would say instead of judging, try the experience, visit, see how it's going, see if it's meant for you, and you're going to have to invest the time. I think Deborah, you underlined the importance of parent being a part of the educational journey from the kids from a very young, starting at a very young age.
And again, I don't want to sound biased, but whether it was, I think, Beautiful Son or whichever school, I think we as parents need to continue developing
Yes.
something that worked 20, 30, 50 years ago. It would have worked and most probably parts of it work. But I always tell my mom, back then you said, you had a donkey, you had this, but now you have a car. Everything evolved. We had the BlackBerry, before that was the Nokia, and our
Yeah.
phones keep on evolving.
And COVID made everybody evolve, whether you liked it or not.
So
Yeah.
why are we as individuals not evolving as well?
Correct.
In our knowledge and in our emotional intelligence and the way we look at, the way we parent, the way we work within organization. Everyone, demands certain things from their employer, but what are you giving back as well? And it's the same with your kids.
Yes.
You demand from them, but what are you giving back? So
Yeah.
I don't say it's always easy, but it has really pushed me as an individual and in my work as being coordinator for the Center for Lifelong Learning to push myself with everything I do. And I really look for information as well.
Yes. And I think, Suzanne, maybe you can talk a bit about the creativity. I would want you, because I want our listeners and those on Facebook viewers as well to understand. Could you give, for examples, Deborah, I'm just going to redirect to Suzanne on like 2 examples that you saw parents at first were doubting if this is really for them and what you did and what the outcome was, and also a kid, because sometimes a parent can go like, hey, this is good, but okay, I don't know if my kid is, because my kid was attending other schools and now it's a complete different mindset. Could you give a concrete example so our listeners can understand a bit more? And again, we're going to invite them to go to the information days as well at the schools they are having, or just call them up. So back to you, Suzanne.
Well, I'd say the beauty of the system and of the art of working with the parents is that you have every kind of parent, just like you have every kind of child.
Mhm.
So it's not a one size fits all situation going on here. We have parents that after I have worked with their child for maybe 3 months, they come in for a conference, and I need them to tighten up the boundaries at home, set an earlier bedtime, so some more structure. And then I have other parents where I have to be, guys, we got to loosen it up a little. We need to be a little bit more relaxed so that we can reach a middle ground here with your child and see them blossom. So at the heart of this conversation about parents and about seeing parents' evolution through the method, I think the really beautiful thing is when they come for their first conference, and I mean, this is a 3-year process with the parents, so it's a long time.
Yeah.
So that first conference, when the parents are nervous and they're sitting at the table and and what is she gonna tell me that my child is doing wrong, and we talk about things, and they see that I know who their child is, and that I love their child, because I feel it's the duty of the teacher to love the child. And I know that parents love their kids, and I know that their child is in the middle of their heart. So we're talking about, we're having a conversation about who this person is. And so at that moment, we move forward. Like, we're talking about who this person is, what that person needs to grow well. And so that's the beginning of the transformation for the parent.
Wow. Yeah.
The two things, so indeed, that adds that with the parent communication plays a very important role, because every week for the past 2 years, I can see from, and there's stories with every picture that you say for when your child becomes older, that he or she understands the trajectory, their own education trajectory, because sometimes we forget that they one day would want to understand their own. So I'm grateful for that. But we skipped something, Cherise, and I want to, is a bit, I think, the preconceived idea someone might make about who Suzanne is. Suzanne, because we didn't ask you, what is your education trajectory?
Yes.
And even with an accent and a strange name, ella habla muy bien el español. So I want to get to that. Who Suzanne is, because now we know who the child is.
Yes. I think we were so engaged in wanting to share the information about the Montessori school, and I see for Kanisami Koleki Lari Angela, that will function as the Montessori school, in St. Nicholas. So you can start informing and sending information for the school year 2021 as well. But yes, I think we were so, reading and want to make sure that our listeners were informed, and we forgot to introduce you.
We did something different.
That's different. There's nothing wrong in that, right?
That's works for Suzanne. So
Suzanne is like, really?
Where were you born with such a last name, and how did you end up
in Aruba?
Aruba and Costa Rica. Yeah. So let me hear this.
So I
don't say something you don't want to say here.
I was born in Costa Rica, and I lived there until I was 21. But I always knew since I was pretty much in high school that I wanted to be a teacher. I was pretty dismayed with my education. I felt as a teenager, I felt self-aware enough, or kind of self-aware enough, to feel that there was a potential that was being wasted in sitting so much, in being such a passive learner. I felt that the things that I was interested in were not quite taken into account, and that I was not being necessarily seen as an individual. And so I had strong feelings that there must be another way. And I did get into education. I studied in the United States. I did a bachelor's degree in education and a master's degree in education. And then I was a Spanish teacher for high schoolers, and I loved it. teenagers are a whole other universe. Now I work with preschoolers, but there's similarities there for sure. And and when I discovered Montessori, I thought this is what I was looking for. This was the piece that was missing. I needed a framework that would teach me how to really see and respect children, and that is the method. So I studied in Portland, Oregon. So for any potential teachers out there, the Montessori training is a life-changing experience.
A life learning one, yeah.
For sure. So I recommend it highly to anybody out there. If you want information about Montessori training, send me an email. I'm happy to help any potential teachers out there. And I did a Montessori degree for 3 to 6 year olds, and then for 0 to 3 year olds, and then met an Aruban man. And that's the beginning of
that's the beginning of a new beginning.
Good.
That's where it got better, that's where it got better. Lifelong learning process.
And if I may mention, this is a second part to your question, and I hear that you're in contact with your Fraucani on your phone right now. So a shout out to the many Montessori schools in Aruba right now.
Yes.
So we have the Montessori Schoolhouse in Nord. We have Nos Fortaleza in Paradera, in Dakota now, who is opening a second location, I think, in Paradera. We have the Zonekind daycare, and we have the Blue Sky Montessori daycare also. And we have Hilario Angela, that is in St. Nicholas, that has a elementary program and will soon have a primary program for younger children also. And of course, to Iraika at YNZ Montessori High School. So
I know,
for anybody interested in Montessori, there is choice.
Yes, and Deborah, I know you would have a question, but we're looking at the time. So, yes, I know. Jan puts if you're on the road, take your time coming to St. Nicholas. But we're reaching to the end of the program, and those of you, thanks for all the comments and the remarks. And we do hope that you love our new interface. Send a few comments, send a few remarks. Thank you, because it is because of you, our viewers and listeners, that we're trying to improve. We're also a lifelong learner, and we want to give the best because we think you deserve the best. So on this note, before I ask Deborah to close the program, Susanna, I would really like to thank you, but also invite you to please leave some comments on information. Anyone who's interested to read, or send it to Deborah so we could put it in the comment, because we want that when our listeners go back and look at the comment, they can find a few YouTube videos, links where they can also learn more about the Montessori education, and also any education in Aruba. And feel free to contact one of us, or speakers, or guest speakers. So thank you so much. And Deborah, we're coming to the end of the program. I know.
Persons listening in, tuning in via Facebook, you would have noticed that I, have very good relationship with both our speakers. And the reason why I brought them on, because in looking at educate from a different way, I think this is two extreme of the spectrum. And Montessori, and each is different, but in its difference, it serves a need, and that is the need of the kid that is the most important. And it also brings back to, let's not judge parents or kids that learn differently, or even look differently, or make certain choices. It's all at the well-being of, and again, as you said it existed for many years. And we'd be surprised how many persons who are now successful, but also creative, have gone through this program. So for all of you tuning in via Facebook, I thank you very much for having stayed with us the past hour. For our listeners, on Massive 103.5 FM, thank you again this week for joining us from 3 to 4.
Yes,
thank you, Cherise.
Thank you too for being here last night late, trying to get everything in focus. And
I want to thank Cherise for pushing me each time. I won't say she's crazy, because I'm not allowed to say that this year anymore.
But we have viewers.
I admire her drive in wanting me to become a better individual, but also admire her tenacity, drive in wanting to excel at almost everything she does.
That we do. I think we have this program at heart, and as you say, our listeners are very important to us and our viewers. So thanks to you too. And before, because I'm the timekeeper as well, but there's an interesting conversation coming up before we say goodbye to our viewers, because I see Poots is almost here. Could you just give a hint on next week conversation, because we're going to have a past president of the University of Aruba, people
known
who have
person in
had
the music
different,
world.
yes, known in the music
In
world,
the music world and the police force. I think the word that
very private
Yeah,
entities.
I think you can say it's private, high intelligence, secret intelligence.
Secret intelligence,
I think that's the
yeah.
topic for next
Yeah,
week.
secret intelligence. So if you want to know what's going to happen next week, stay tuned. Remember, every Wednesday from 3 to 4, right here on Massive 103.5 and live on our Facebook, on our YouTube. Find us. Yes, there we go. So thank you so much. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, our listeners. As we say goodbye to our listeners, we will end the day with our theme song, Akita Ambiente.
We going global with this thing. Akita Ambiente.